from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Owens, here it goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football.
Chambers delivers! Touchdown!
Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
Good evening. Welcome into a Saturday edition here of the Deep South College Football Show. Hanging out on live with you guys here on Twitter, YouTube, and X. Just kind of, talking about what's been going on here in college football. Alabama's big commitment with Elijah Haven earlier this afternoon. So we'll absolutely break down what Elijah Haven brings to Alabama, what this means for the quarterback room here for the Crimson Tide, as Kalen DeBoer gets another massive commitment here when you look at the five-star quarterback there out of Dunham High School there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So we'll talk about Elijah Haven here today, this evening here. Joining me here, my good buddy Will Davis. He joins us on the Deep South College Football Show over there on the incredible Tide 100.9. Will, how you doing, man?
Good, man. I'm excited to be out of the studio and actually live. It's cool that we get to interact with people and actually talk to them a little bit and talk amongst ourselves too, and kind of take our at-home chats and put it on a platform where everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah, if you know Will and I, every day, I think we're on the phone for about 30 minutes to an hour just talking college football, Alabama, what's going on. So figured, hey, if we like to talk about it, y'all like to talk about it, let's take it to the YouTube side of things. Let's take it to the stream here. So first live stream on a Saturday. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see if you guys enjoy it. If you do, we may make this a regular thing. But wanted to jump on tonight here again with Elijah Haven's commitment. You've also got the NFL draft going on here. We're wrapping up round 7 here of the NFL draft with just a few picks left, not a ton, but if anything notable happens here, Diego Pavia, Garrett Nussmeier, two guys in the SEC that we cover. As you see, I'm repping the SEC hoodie here. Two guys that we've come to know very, very thoroughly here throughout their tenure at LSU and Vanderbilt. So we'll keep an eye on the SEC guys, see kind of who else is getting picked here in the NFL draft and who Mr. Irrelevant is at pick 257. As of right now, that pick belongs to the Denver Broncos. So Bo Nix, could he get some offensive or defensive help here when you look at Mr. Irrelevant? Or do they just decide, you know what, we're tired of the Auburn quarterbacks with Bo Nix and Jared Stidham. Let's go get somebody else. Let's go take a Pavia or a Nussmeier and make him our backup, our third string or whatnot there. So
if I were a GM,
yeah,
I'd get fired because I'd go for the last pick of the draft every year just so I could have a collection of Mr. Irrelevants.
It'd be a lot of fun there, absolutely. And Mr. Irrelevant's not the only draft pick now that gets some hype and things like that. Pick 57 is now Mr. Hines as well.
Where did that come from? That's brand new to this year, is it not? I've never heard of it.
I think it is brand new to this year. So pick 57, for those that don't know, Heinz 57, the ketchup company, they don't sponsor us, but they sponsor the 57th pick of the NFL draft. That pick now gets a lifetime supply of ketchup, or at least some sort of, branding with ketchup and things like that with the Heinz company there. So pick 57 in this year's NFL draft here, that was all the way back here. When you look at the second round of the NFL draft here, that was center out of Iowa, Logan Jones, to the Chicago Bears. And he even talked about it a little bit, getting like that lifetime supply of ketchup. I don't know. It's kind of cool. I like when companies do some neat things like that. And so Heinz 57 there, Logan Jones out of Iowa. So we'll talk about the NFL draft here a little bit later here tonight, though. But the University of Alabama, I was told Kalen DeBoer can't recruit the South, landed the number 1 quarterback in the South, not just in the South, in the entire country earlier this afternoon here. When you look at 5-star quarterback Elijah Haven here out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, committing to Alabama, like I mentioned earlier, from Dunham High School right there in Baton Rouge. And LSU was never really overly involved in his recruitment, which always felt really weird, right? I mean, LSU talks so much about the boot and the talent that comes out of the boot. And it's it's evident, right? Devontae Smith, Heisman Trophy winner, first-round draft pick, NFL star, came from Louisiana, came from the boot. And so you look at the talent level there. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, we could rattle off a ton of names that have come from Louisiana, but I think for Alabama fans, the most notable one is Devontae Smith, that 2020 Heisman Trophy winner there at wide receiver at the University of Alabama. So Elijah Haven, five-star quarterback, phenomenal prospect here, 6'5", 220 pounds there. And to me, it was always really odd that LSU was not involved in his recruitment.
I'll be curious how that goes now that Kiffin is their coach. Obviously, I'm way more offensive-minded guy than Brian Kelly was, but LSU has also been known for those dual threat quarterbacks, and Haven has been that for his entire career. His rushing numbers kind of dipped a little bit this last year because he became such an efficient passer. Because what was it, 72% in his junior year?
Yeah, his completion
72%, 63 touchdowns, something like that.
His completion percentage jumped, I think, 11% basically from his sophomore to his junior campaign from 24 to 25 here. I've now got the stats pulled up here. Yeah, 2024, 60% completion percentage. Still threw for 3,000 yards and 37 touchdowns, but he had 948 rushing yards and 21 rushing touchdowns. As a junior last year, being named Gatorade and Max Preps Player of the Year there in Louisiana, he had 72.3% completion percentage. So actually a 12% jump when you look at his completion percentage there. Threw for 3,900 yards, had 62 passing touchdowns compared to 37 as a sophomore. Now, the rushing numbers, like Will mentioned, did dip a little bit there, but even still, 794 yards and 11 touchdowns at Dunham High School there in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, like he's clearly a dual threat quarterback. I mean, he's trying to work on his passing game by the looks of it. It's going very well. But LSU's always been known, at least in my lifetime, for those dual threat quarterbacks. And obviously Garrett Nussmeier wasn't that, but you think of guys like on the 2011 LSU team, Jaden Daniels, guys that came before him. Joe Burrow and Garrett Nussmeier are
they're a little more similar than what Nussmeier and Daniels were, but I mean, even still, like Joe Burrow had some good wiggle to him.
Right. Like Burrow was a dual threat coming out of high school, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
But you think of those guys that can beat you with your legs, and now you have Lane Kiffin, who is one of the best offensive minds in the entire country, and they're just not involved. So that makes you wonder, like, what was Alabama, what was Georgia saying to him to keep him not only away from LSU, but like not even really clearly think about him much.
I think part of it too is just kind of the timeline of events, right? LSU, before they hired Lane Kiffin, they had Brian Kelly, who was able to accumulate really good talent, but couldn't really do a ton with it once it got on the field there in Baton Rouge. And so I think, just the timeline of Brian Kelly, his LSU tenure, ending the way that it did, and then the transition to Lane Kiffin, didn't seem like Ole Miss was overly involved in his recruitment early. And therefore, when Kiffin made the transition from Ole Miss to LSU was starting, on their back foot with a coach that was not overly pursuing Elijah Haven as well. So Elijah Haven, his final four were Alabama, Florida, Auburn, and Georgia. And it quickly shifted back to a final three of Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn. And then you even look at that there again, he whittled it down to a final two after, a couple of people had said Auburn's not really communicating with him. Don't know why Auburn's here in the top three, but whatever. Whittled it down to Alabama and Georgia. And Georgia came out to see him yesterday in Baton Rouge. We're in the contact period right now for recruiting. So Georgia goes out to see him yesterday, but it was not enough to pull him away from Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. And it's very obvious what Kalen DeBoer likes when he's evaluating these quarterbacks.
Tall with great arms and can move.
Yeah.
That's his stereotypical quarterback. I mean, even Penix, like his best season he's ever had. Penix, how tall is Penix? 6'1", 6'2"?
I think he's a 6'2" quarterback.
Decent size for a quarterback, like that kind of in that sweet spot. But Haven is just a giant. Like he's Bryce Underwood, Trevor Lawrence size. He's a big dude and he's got a cannon for an arm. I mean, I've been watching him. When did we pick up on him?
I think we picked up on him right after that freshman season in 2023, where, by the way, as a true freshman.
Oh, there goes Tim Keenan.
Tim Keenan III, breaking news here. Tim Keenan III out of Alabama has been drafted with the 232nd pick by the Los Angeles Rams. So
he's going to get to play with Ty.
We got to talk about that too. Sean McVay's reaction to Ty Simpson. But Tim Keenan is now a Los Angeles Ram. That's the second former Alabama player this draft that is now heading to Los Angeles. And hopefully their NFL career in LA goes a little bit better than what their college career did, because the last two times these guys were in Los Angeles, I think Alabama fans would rather forget about that.
You need to hide your hat talking about that one.
I know. I didn't even plan it wearing the Rose Bowl hat here. But going back to Elijah Haven here, big congrats to Tim Keenan too. Again, for being drafted there. Pick 232, the 16th pick in the 7th round. Tim Keenan III out of Alabama is heading to the Los Angeles Rams here. But heading back to Elijah Haven here, we picked up on him kind of that freshman campaign, right after that freshman year, where he, as a true freshman in 2023, 67.7% completion percentage, 2,200 yards, and a school record 35 passing touchdowns.
It's a 14, 15-year-old.
Yeah.
In the state of Louisiana, that is one of the top, 10, 15 states when it comes to football talent?
I think it's top 5.
Well, I was trying to be generous, but
I mean, you got California, Florida, Texas, I think are 1, 2, 3, and then I think Georgia and LSU or Georgia and Louisiana are right there.
Yeah, Alabama. I would even throw in New Jersey.
Yeah,
like states like that. But I mean, they have a conversation to be in the top 5, and as a 14, 15-year-old to break a bigger school's record like that, that's impressive, and that at least drew my eyes, because I remember hearing of him back then. I don't remember watching him much, but I really watched him his sophomore year, and I was like, okay, this kid's something. And then he just blows up, and now here we are.
Yeah, and so, by the way, it was a school record as a freshman that he was when he had 35 touchdowns. He had 37 as a sophomore, so broke that record again, and then exploded, like we mentioned last year, with 62 passing touchdowns. By the way, 73 total, so that's 11 rushing as well there. So he's breaking his own records at this point there down in Dunham High School. But shifting to what this means for Alabama, that's a loaded quarterback room. If you look at the current makeup of Alabama's quarterback room, you've got Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, a redshirt junior and a redshirt freshman, respectively, competing for that starting job there in Tuscaloosa, actually here in Tuscaloosa. And then behind them, you've got, depending on what site you used, a 5-star or a 4-star. Jet Tamala out of Nebraska there. He was a 5-star on Rivals, but a 4-star everywhere else. So a consensus 4-star. One side had him as a 5-star. And then you've got 3-star Taden Evankawa there as well. And oh, by the way, in 2027, you've got 4-star just legacy in the state of Alabama. Trent Seaborn commit out of Thompson High School, committed to Alabama. And you just added 5-star Elijah Haven. Plethora of talent at quarterback.
Yeah. If you're in the state of Alabama, you know who Trent Seaborn is. But for those of us that are not or have not been paying attention, he's been starting at Thompson since the 8th grade.
And he's now a senior.
And now he's a senior. He's won how many state titles? 2? 3?
He's been to the state title every year.
Yeah.
I think he's won 3.
So a lot. He's won. And he's just been Alabama high school royalty for the longest time. We do have a question, Wyatt, on YouTube.
We'll get to the question here in just a minute here. But like you mentioned, Trent Seaborn, royalty here. Has worked with the Tunga Vailoas, to his dad there is a big quarterback coach as well. And so has worked with them, is very familiar with the Tunga Vailoa family. Tua and Talia both playing here at Alabama. Talia ended his college career at Maryland. Tua, obviously we know, first-round pick for the Miami Dolphins, is now no longer in Miami after the Dolphins cut him, is now off to Atlanta there to compete, I guess, with Michael Penix for that starting quarterback job. But when you look at the talent here at quarterback at Alabama, the way Nick Saban was able to pull defensive backs is the way Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, and new quarterback coach Brian Ellis have been able to handle these quarterbacks here. But a positive is that the defensive back recruiting has not slowed down at all for Alabama.
No, just to name some names that are 5-stars in top 1, 2, or 3 in the DBs of their class, Dijon Lee, Xavier Brown, Jordan Edmonds, we were just talking, 15 straight years? an Alabama DB has been drafted. Yeah, so 15 straight years an Alabama DB has been drafted, and now that doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon with those three, and they're all going to come out in separate years unless Xavier decides to take an extra year or Dijon decides to take an extra year. And Alabama's still staying in the mix for these top DBs. So it's like they're clearly recruiting at a high level.
Yeah. Number one DB in 2027, John Meredith III. I know Texas A&M and Texas kind of lead for him right now, but Alabama's he put out on he's told 247 Sports, look, if I got to make a decision right now, like Alabama's within that top three, and he's the top defensive back in the upcoming recruiting class as well.
Yeah. So it's nice to see that an offensive-minded head coach like DeBoer, he can still recruit those defensive players like that and keep Alabama's defense at a top level. Because I mean, as long as Kane Wommack's here, this is going to be a top unit in college football. Like that dude is a wizard. He is something. And I was so glad the day we got him. And it's the fruit it has bore is just insane.
It's very, very impressive. And so this actually leads into this first question here that we got in the chat here. Looking at this question here, if you're a 5-star recruit, is Alabama still your number one choice? Really good question here when you look at the University of Alabama. Still recruiting at a very high level, even though maybe necessarily the results on the field haven't been what fans wanted. And I think for the most part, right, most logical media and fans have kind of adjusted their expectations in college football when you look at NIL and the transfer portal and things like that here. But at the same time, if you're one of the top recruits in the country, you're still seeing Alabama pull in all this talent. You're still seeing Alabama, they're still beating Georgia, who many people in the SEC consider to be the top, no pun intended, but the top dog in the SEC now.
The jokes write themselves.
They do. I mean, still beating Georgia, still competing for SEC championships. They were one of 5 teams to win a playoff game last year. I think when you look at the way Nick Saban left Alabama, at the time, we're all still using stars and rankings and things like that. And we say, well, Kalen DeBoer had all this talent on the roster. How did he go 9-4 in year number one? And I think part of that is just that we were still coming out of some of the COVID evaluations. We were still coming out of, brand new NIL era and things like that. And by the way, it maybe wasn't as loaded of a roster as we expect or as we initially thought when Kalen DeBoer first got to Alabama.
Yeah. We also got to throw in the fact that it just wasn't his play style in terms of Jalen Milroe was a run first quarterback there that entire season, I would dare say. He kind of started to pass a little bit better towards the end of his first year starting, but then something happened where, at least in my eyes, he regressed in terms of passing there for a while.
I think it was probably trust in the offensive line.
Yeah, that was definitely something that could have helped. But I'm not an analyst or anything like that, so I don't know the ins and outs of that. And I'm not going to claim like I know. But there was also just a scheme fit issue, at least for me in that first year. And so for him to still go 9-4 showed that hey, this guy knows what he's doing. And it made it so that these top recruits still think of Alabama as a premium destination, but also they're still putting top talent in the NFL. I mean, we had
Alabama's one of 4 schools to have multiple first-round picks on Thursday night. Indiana had 2. Alabama had 2. Ohio State, we know what they did.
They had a lot.
Yeah.
And they'll always, they're like Alabama. They'll always have a lot. Did Georgia?
Georgia only had 1. They had Monroe Freeling go, and that was it for the Bulldogs there.
So Miami might have.
Notre Dame, Miami both had multiple.
So the best teams in college football, the best programs in college football, and Alabama is still up there with them. But also to elaborate a little bit more on the question, it's you also got to throw in the money part of it. So Alabama, obviously, they're not up there with Texas and Texas A&M and Oregon and Ohio State in terms of throwing money around. But if a recruit wants to get developed, Alabama is, if they're not your first choice, they're up there in the top 3.
I think at key positions, if you're a 5-star, right, only 32 5-stars per class, the recruiting rankings do it because there's only 32 first-round picks. So if you're a 5-star, they basically say you're talented enough to be a first-round pick. So if you are a 5-star quarterback, Alabama probably should be the number one choice. If you're a 5-star defensive back, corner, safety, Alabama probably should be right up there. But I think with the way you've seen Alabama downtrend in a couple of other key areas, I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama's not the top option for 5-star running backs, edge rushers, and things like that. Not to say that Alabama isn't good in those categories or haven't had good players in those categories, but the running game the last couple of seasons has not been up to the Alabama standard. And then when you also look at, edge rusher, you had Will Anderson and Dallas Turner go back-to-back in the first round, but you haven't had a first-round pick since 2023 at edge. And for Alabama, a 2-year gap is a bit of an issue there. Now, you do kind of expect Yonze Pierre may be the guy that's going to right that ship there in that edge room there for Alabama. But so I think, quarterback, receiver, defensive back, offensive tackle, like if you look at Alabama and you say, all right, they're putting out a ton of talent there at those positions, yeah, they probably should be a part of your number one choice. But if you're a running back, at that point, it kind of depends. Do you want early playing time, or do you want to go to a school that's maybe got a little bit more better history of developing at the running back position?
It's funny you bring that up, though, because Alabama still is bringing in top running back prospects.
Yeah, EJ Crowell, 5-star.
Both of those were 5-stars. There was another 5-star that transferred. What was his name? I'm blanking.
From Alabama or to Alabama?
To Alabama. He transferred from Alabama. He was in the AK Deer class.
Oh. Richard Young.
Richard Young.
He came in with Justice Haynes, yeah.
Yeah, Justice Haynes, Richard Young, all of those guys are 5-stars. And so, they're still top 2-3 players at their position, and Alabama's still pulling them. So
that's a very long-winded way of saying, yes, if you're a 5-star recruit, you probably still should be, debating or at least considering Alabama there when you look at making your college decision here. Another question here. Would you rather build through the high school ranks or rely more so on the transfer portal? And this is a big conversation right now in college football because certain programs like in Alabama, like a Georgia, they're still developing through the high school ranks. And then you've got other programs, no disrespect to them because they're winning this way, but Indiana, Oregon, Michigan, they're doing a lot of really good things via the transfer portal here. So this may be more of a personal preference question. Would you rather build through high school or the transfer portal?
I'd almost rather do a combination of both.
That's fair.
I would rather get guys that I can develop so I at least have some depth because and get those guys that I know are maybe not going to start right away. Let's say Keelan last year with Ty. Let's say Ty wasn't there and you knew Keelan wasn't going to be ready day one to start. You'd want to go get a quarterback. And that's just a way to say I'd rather use the portal to plug holes and gaps in my roster so that I can still keep my identity and my team chemistry out of guys that I have brought in from high school and taught them everything they know about college, but inject it with veteran leadership, talent, and just ball knowledge that these kids aren't going to have coming out of high school. So, but
Steve Sarkisian also talked about this here in a recent interview that he did. Would you rather pay all this money to some 5-star freshman that is probably going to be very good, but is still going to have to grow, learn, and develop and may not be ready to go day one? Or do you go and get somebody that has already done it at the collegiate level, maybe even done it in your conference when you look at the SEC or, even comparable conferences like the Big Ten there? Would you rather pay, $1.2 million to an 18-year-old who has still got a lot to grow and learn, or would you rather pay $1.2 million for the 1-year rental of a 22-year-old that is already there, has got the talent, and is able to continue, continue what they've already grown and learned and developed in college? So I think you're right. It's probably some sort of a mixture of both here when you look at, you want to build through the high school ranks, but if you've got, 1 spot, 2 spots that you maybe have an issue or lack of depth, that's when you go get them out of the transfer.
Or
portal.
there's just a guy in there that is a playmaker.
Yeah.
If Cam Coleman enters the portal.
If Cam Coleman hits the portal,
you go and get him whether you have a hole at receiver or not. You tell somebody else to pound sand if you get him. As hard as that is to say, football at this level is about winning. Yeah. This isn't middle school football or even Wisconsin D5 level football. This is about winning, and your job is on the line if you don't win. And so if somebody like that enters the portal, you tell the kid that you've invested 3 years in, bye, there's the door. Because Cam Coleman is going to be a bona fide first-round pick, no matter what you do to him.
Absolutely, at that point. So it's a balancing act, and that's a lot of things that, some players or some coaches are doing a really good job of navigating that. I think Dan Lanning is maybe a little too reliant on the portal, but it's working for him. So I can't really, knock him one way or another because it's working. Steve Sarkisian's somebody that it's working for him, right? Arch Manning, he came in, Texas has developed him, and now he's, a very highly sought after player in college football, probably going to be a first rounder in the NFL draft this time next year. But you identify certain areas, and they went out and got Cam Coleman. They went out and got Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown there when you look at the transfer portal. So a couple of areas for Texas that, they developed in certain areas, but then they still went and got out and plugged holes that they may have had on their roster via the transfer portal. So also helps when you got a ton of money, right? If you've got oil money as a Texas school, whether you be, Texas, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, or if you've got, a major booster like Oregon's got with Phil Knight, maybe it does allow you to play that transfer portal game a little bit more, a little bit better than maybe a school like, an Alabama or a Georgia that doesn't have that super high level booster that you can just go to every time and say, look, I'm going to go get I'm going to go get who I want. I just need you to cut a blank check, and people be willing to do it.
The last two starting quarterbacks have been transfers as well. Fernando Mendoza and Will Howard, right? Will Howard. I always got him out of Ohio State. He was a transfer.
Oh, you're talking about national champ. Yeah.
The last two national title winning quarterbacks.
So yes, the last two national title
transfers.
The last two national title winning quarterbacks and the last two number one overall picks have both been transfers. Fernando Mendoza filled both those stipulations there. Last year, or 2 years ago in the NFL draft, it was Cam Ward out of Miami by way of Incarnate Word and Washington State, and then this past season it was Fernando Mendoza by way of Cal. So,
technically, the last 5 national title winning teams, 2 being Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana, only one of them was recruited and stayed at their school the entirety of their college career, and that was J.J. McCarthy.
It was J.J. McCarthy at Michigan.
Stetson Bennett left for a little bit. He was recruited by Georgia, then he left and came back. So there's clearly something there, and it's probably more so just the fact that these quarterbacks are just so much older and experienced that they can just kind of fit in or make the culture their own.
Yeah.
But I mean, even Ohio State, like a lot of their key positions were transfers outside of the receiver room, obviously, because I mean, Jeremiah Smith is just a freak, and Emeka
Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, like they were just monsters.
Freaks, but the rest of that team, a lot of them were transfers.
Quinshon Judkins, the running back of that national championship team, was a transfer. Will Howard, we already mentioned, the quarterback. Caleb Downs, Seth McLaughlin were 2 starters on that team. Seth McLaughlin ended up getting injured, but, a lot of key transfers for Ohio State there when you look at that national championship roster. And I mean, even when you look at, the top quarterbacks coming back to college football, right? I think I'd put out, my top 5 quarterback rankings here pretty recently. And I mean, even guys that, I think my number 1 quarterback was Dante Moore at Oregon.
Transfer.
That's a transfer. My number 2 was Arch Manning. Or no. Excuse me. I think my number 2 was, I'd have to go back and pull up the graphic. But whatever. Guys that are normally in these top 5 conversations, right? Dante Moore, transfer quarterback. Josh Hoover, transfer from TCU to Indiana this past offseason here. Arch Manning, okay, that's an organic guy at Texas. Same thing with Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. But I mean, even Trinidad Chambliss, right? That's a transfer player there when you look at that. Sam Levitt at LSU, Baron Morton over there at, not Baron Morton, excuse me, Brendan Sorsby at Texas Tech. I just saw Baron Morton in the draft. That's why I was thinking of him. But Brendan Sorsby at Texas Tech, like all these top guys, or at least a lot of these top guys, probably half of your top 6 in college football this upcoming season here are transfer quarterbacks. So there's a way to go about it. I think if you nail your evaluations, then you feel pretty comfortable about keeping your guys here and recruiting via the high school ranks. Whereas if you maybe whiff on a evaluation, or you change jobs like Lane Kiffin did, you have to go out and go get a transfer guy because you're just not going to have that in your current roster.
Yeah. I'm curious how the lack of development at the quarterback position specifically, obviously the quarterback is the big moneymaker, so that's the one you talk about the most.
Right.
I'm curious how that lack of development, and more so just like, hey, I want to play right away and I'm going to go to the school that plays me with the most right away, is going to hurt quarterback play going forward. I personally think the days of seeing Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes type players are gone. That's a personal opinion of mine that is directly tied to the fact that these guys don't come in and get developed like they should, especially when NFL teams are starting their first round players right away, or first round quarterbacks. That's why I like the Ty Simpson situation so much. And I said it back in October, something like that.
Yeah.
Early in the year that I wanted him to go to the Rams, and I thought that the Rams would be a good fit because he could sit behind Matthew Stafford. He could sit there with McVay and learn the offense, learn how to adjust to NFL speed, and actually grow and develop into a quarterback that wins in the NFL. It's what the Packers have done my entire life, their entire existence, and they're one of the most successful franchises in football history. Tom Brady did it behind Drew Bledsoe. So they're not getting the development they should be getting, and so I wonder if the portal is going to hurt quarterback play in the long run.
I think it definitely could. It most definitely could. Yeah, I mean, we talk all the time. Like, we used to see these, quote unquote giants play quarterback, right? A quarterback comes into your stadium and you are horrified. 2019 Joe Burrow, even when Jalen Hurts was, running around at Oklahoma, like, you still feared Jalen Hurts. When Bryce Young came to your stadium, it was, oh dear God, how are we stopping Bryce Young? Nowadays, you look at the quarterbacks in college football, and not to say they're not as good, but I think, like you mentioned, the portal and all this team hopping, the lack of consistency in a system might be hurting their development here when you look at that side of things here. One more question here, talking college football before we dive into the NFL draft as it's wrapping up here. Which program is closer to becoming the new Alabama rather than Alabama staying, which program is closer to becoming the new Alabama than Alabama is to staying on top?
That's a really good question.
I like that question a lot there. And look, for the record, Alabama was so dominant for so long, it was going to happen at some point that Alabama was going to regress a little bit. But I think the fact that you're, 2 years from the greatest coach of all time retiring, and you were one of 5 teams last year that won a playoff game. That's it. You were one of the best 5 teams in the country.
One of 5 teams?
To win a playoff game last year. Indiana.
That math hurts my head, but it's accurate.
Indiana, Miami. Or let's go through the rounds, right? Ole Miss beat Tulane. Great, whatever. Miami beat Texas A&M. Alabama beat Oklahoma. Oregon beat James Madison. Oregon beat Texas Tech again. So you can't add another team there. Indiana beat Alabama. All right, so there's your 5th. Ole Miss beat Georgia. Miami beat whoever they played. I forget who Miami. Or no. In the quarterfinals
Ohio
there.
State.
Miami beat Ohio State. And then the semifinals were all teams that had already won a game.
Jam Miller just went to the Patriots.
Hey, there you go. Alabama running back Jam Miller, another 7th-round draft pick here, heading to the New England Patriots with pick 245 here in the NFL draft. So New England gets another running back here when you look at the NFL draft, and another Alabama guy comes off the board. That's now 2 Alabama guys that have gone off the board here since we started this stream. So maybe we should just live stream the draft next year, and all the Alabama players,
guys will go.
all the Alabama guys will get taken there if you look at the NFL draft next year. But yeah, Alabama was one of 5 teams to win a playoff game last year. So even though you may not be at the level that Saban had you at, you're still a top 10 program in college football, a top 8, top 5 program in college football if you're Alabama. And so I think at this point, you kind of just have to be okay with that. We always say, when we talk about the NFL or the NBA playoffs or the Stanley Cup finals there, get to the dance. We say it all the time in March Madness, get to the dance. Anything can happen once you get to the big dance. So I think as long as you're still, chomping at the bit, you're still getting bites at the apple there, you're going to eventually break through. You're eventually going to get one there. So I think as long as Kalen DeBoer still has Alabama in the playoffs, which I think is, a very realistic expectation for Alabama, then you should be fine. But in terms of what program is closer to becoming the new Alabama, I think that's a fun conversation as well, because 4 years ago, even 3 years ago, before the 2023 season, I think if you had asked this question, a lot of people would have said Georgia.
That'd be the easy answer. The easy answer would have been Georgia.
At the time.
But now.
But the SEC, including Georgia, has not made a national championship game since Georgia dismantled TCU. Georgia hasn't even won a playoff game since that dismantling of TCU at the end of the 2022 season. So who would be that program?
I don't think it's as easy as to say one specific program. Because of the portal, because of NIL, the roster building that Nick Saban did is going to be very difficult to do. I don't want to say impossible because Ohio State put together a really, really good roster.
We say that Ohio State's got the best wide receiver room in the country. Alabama's got one of the best quarterback rooms and one of the deepest defensive line rooms. Georgia's got
I'm talking
Georgia's got two
rosters that
probably
are like 3 or 4 guys deep.
Yeah.
Those teams, like even Alabama and Ohio State, are 2, maybe 3 guys deep that can actually come in and there be very little drop off.
That's fair.
That's what I'm talking about. And like, that's the kind of roster that Nick Saban had every single year. Like when Alabama and Clemson were going back and forth for national championships there, they had rosters that were 4, 5, maybe even 6 players deep of just 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there is Alabama DB rooms that were just 5 stars for a couple years there.
What the entire 2016 draft, the entire 2016 2D got drafted at Alabama.
Yeah, that kind of stuff just is going to be really difficult to do, and so having that consistency where it's like, all right, I'm consistently going to be competing at the highest level every single year is going to be really difficult to maintain. But the easy answer right now is to say Indiana, sure, because of Curt Cignetti.
But let's say
what happens if Josh Hoover doesn't pan out, though?
Let's say you have to pick, though. All right, you have to pick one program. We're not giving this the cop out of, this is a difficult question or there's more answers than just one. You're picking one program that you think has the ability to become that next Alabama level program. Who's the one?
Probably Ohio State. Just because you want to say a team like Texas or Oregon, just because they have the money, they have the talent, the brand, but they just don't seemingly ever break the glass ceiling and actually get there. I mean, Oregon's been to 2 national championships, and the last one was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Since their rise to college football supremacy, I guess, is not even really the right word.
I'm going to say lost to Auburn in 2010, lost to Ohio State in 2020 or 2014.
Got dismantled by Ohio State in 2014, and they haven't been back since. And the closest they were was this last year. Texas, same way. They've made the semifinals twice now. And so they're the teams you want to say, but the logical answer is probably Ohio State. Because Ohio State recruits at the same level as Alabama of old and Alabama of current, but they spend more money. And that's the key right there, is they spend more money than Alabama does. They have more money than Alabama does.
Yeah.
I think the correct answer is they have more money they're willing to spend than Alabama does, but that's basically the same thing in this situation right now. And they have the pedigree that they're going to win national championships. So my answer is Ohio State.
I think Ohio State would be my answer as well, just because like everything you mentioned, recruiting pedigree, the brand, they've been there before. They first year of a new playoff system. It seems like Ohio State's always going to win the national title. 4-team era, Ohio State. First year of the 4-team era, first team of the 12-team era, Ohio State there. And so I do think it is Ohio State if I had to pick one program. I think Indiana has a chance just because of what Curt Cignetti's done, and they've got another, Mark Cuban is the big donor there for Indiana. We all know who the hell Mark Cuban is, so clearly they've got the money and they're willing to spend it there, and they went out and got another portal guy and Josh Hoover here, so
you just got to wonder, can they sustain the success? And that's not me trying to dog on them.
You got to see the turnover happen with sustained success.
Yeah.
That was one thing that Nick Saban did so well, was that no matter who the OC was, who the DC was, who the position coaches were, Nick Saban kept going. Alabama still kept winning national championships, and Nick Saban adapted to different eras of college football. Ohio State, their OC their OC changed. The offense really struggled a lot last season here. The defensive coordinator stayed the same with Matt Patricia, so that's good for them. But, now you're losing your OC again. Chip Kelly was the OC during that national championship run. Brian Hartline was the OC. Well, he's now the head coach at USF. So can Ohio State withstand the change at the coordinator level? And Ryan Day has been the primary play caller. Ironically, the one time he gave it up, Ohio State won a national championship. The handfuls of games that Ryan Day gave up play calling last season, Ohio State's offense looked so much better. So is there going to be a guy in there that they really trust to be that guy? And their new offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith. So get ready for a lot of 13 personnel out of Columbus, Ohio. With, for some reason, they're going to run a bunch of 13 personnel, even though they got Jeremiah Smith, Chris Henry Jr., Brandon Ennis, a bunch of stars at receiver out there. But
And Julian Sain is your quarterback.
Julian Sain, who could potentially be the top quarterback off the board next year. Same thing with Arch Manning, Dante Moore. I think those are probably, as of right now, your top three consensus for next year. But even still, I think if Indiana goes out and wins at the similar level that they did this past season, and then they lose their OC and DC, and they're still going, that's when they've got something sustainable. If you can withstand that change, that'll be absolutely crucial for learning if these teams can sustain the success that they've got. Switching topics here to the NFL draft as we're getting ready to wrap up round 7 here at the NFL draft there. Alabama so far has had several draft picks. I think one in every round but the third round. Third round's the only round Alabama did not have a player picked now. You had Caden Proctor and Ty Simpson go in the first round. Proctor went at number 12 to the Miami Dolphins. Simpson went at number 13 to the Los Angeles Rams. Jeremy Bernard was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers with pick 47. LT Overton was taken in the 4th round at pick 137. Parker Brailsford goes to the Cleveland Browns at pick 146. Justin Jefferson goes to the Browns 3 picks later at 149. Josh Cuevas to the Ravens at pick 173 in the 5th round there. 3 5th-round picks for Alabama. Damani Jackson goes to my Green Bay Packers at pick 201 in the 6th round. And then you heard us here talk about it here in the 7th. When you look at Tim Keenan being taken at pick 232 by the LA Rams, and then Jam Miller getting taken by the New England Patriots at 245 here. Will, after hearing where these guys have gone, who do you think is in the best position for them as a player? Not necessarily team grade, not necessarily, is he the best fit for the team if they want to win right now, but for the player individually, who went to the best spot?
Ty Simpson, this is a layup for me. Ty Simpson, absolutely. I talked about it earlier.
Even with Sean McVay, ticked off at the pick, apparently.
I think people read too much into that, man. I don't think McVay cared. And from what I'm hearing, he signed off on it. He's the one that said, yes, let's do it.
Oh, he absolutely did. He said,
there's no way you do that. There goes Garrett Nussmeier to the Chiefs. That's hysterical.
Wow. So, former LSU starter Garrett Nussmeier at 249, just coming in under the buzzer there, heads to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. But anyway, no, Ty's a smart player. He was here at Alabama felt like forever.
Yeah.
It feels like forever ago, that USF monsoon game that he came in and won for us. But it's I was talking about it earlier, it's good for young quarterbacks to go and sit behind a veteran. For a long time, I thought Matthew Stafford was the most underrated quarterback in the league. And before COVID, I said he was a top 5 quarterback. People said that I was nuts, and I said, put him on a real team, see what happens. His first year, he wins a freaking Super Bowl. So I feel pretty vindicated about that one. I've watched Matthew Stafford torch the Vikings and the Packers every year for however many years he was there. Don't even want to count, because it was some dark days sometimes, especially when the Lions were out competing the Vikings in the division, but we won't talk about that. But no, Ty going there and learning from McVay, who I think is the best offensive mind in football. I personally think he's the best offensive mind in football. I wouldn't disagree with you if you didn't agree, because there's guys like Shanahan, Kiffin, Sarkisian.
Yeah.
So many great offensive minds in the game right now. But I personally think it's McVay. And then you throw in Stafford with a team that's willing to spend. I think Ty is going to be a starter in the NFL for a long time, honestly.
I'm also going to say Ty Simpson. It was the easiest layup answer ever. I mean, for grading it for Ty Simpson, it's an absolute A+ here when you look at the Los Angeles Rams. You get to learn under one of the best head coaches in the NFL. You get to learn under the reigning MVP in the NFL, and you don't have to play immediately. I am always of the belief. I've said it here. I've said it on the radio. I've said it on interviews I've done. Rookie quarterbacks need to sit that first year. If you want them to succeed, you employ the Green Bay Packer method. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Packers fan. You employ the Green Bay Packer method and you sit that rookie quarterback for at least their first season. Ty's going to get exactly that with the LA Rams there. And then you also look at, when Ty does take over, you've got Puka Nacua as your top option, Kyron Williams at running back, a really strong offensive line here. And if Devontae Adams is still hanging around, if it's next year, if it's 2 years down the line, great. That's a sure-handed weapon, veteran that you can use. If not, the Rams, I'm sure, will go and get another option there for him there. But you've got a bona fide wide receiver one. You've got a really good tight end. You've got a really good run game, and you've got a really good offensive line. And, oh, by the way, you've got one of the best offensive head coaches in football. Cam Newton said it best. The best friend of a young quarterback is the offensive line. You know what your second best friend is? A good tight end. You know what your third best friend is? A good run game. Fourth, defense. Fifth, that big wide receiver one. LA checks all those boxes for Ty Simpson here, and he gets to sit and learn under the reigning NFL MVP. So for Ty Simpson here, I think this was 5-star. You couldn't have asked for a better draft if you're Ty Simpson. Now, rating it from the Rams' perspective, do you still, are we still as glowing when we talk about it if we look at it from the LA Rams' perspective?
I wouldn't give it an A+, just because it's hard to give A+ when you're drafting a project quarterback. I don't want to call him a project. Like, that's not the right word. He could go in and start in the NFL right now and do fine. Like, he wouldn't be great. Like, he wouldn't take the Rams to the playoffs. Well, he might because they're just so loaded. But, like, he wouldn't take a bad team to the playoffs and instantly make them that much better. But from the perspective of the Rams, I would probably give this a B+.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I instantly dock him a letter grade just because you're going to get a guy in the first round that you're not going to play. I know I just said all this thing about how it's, like, so good for quarterbacks not to go and start. In the first round, though, you want to get impact guys that are going to have an impact pretty much right away. But for the Rams, they just have such an embarrassment of riches. I mean, they just signed 2 really good corners.
Hell, traded for Trent McDuffie. So if you look at the Rams,
2 good corners.
So if you look at the Rams in the first round, essentially, what they did in the first round of the NFL draft is they got Trent McDuffie and Ty Simpson, an immediate impact, one of the best corners in the National Football League, and a quarterback that you can sit and develop for a year, 2, maybe even 3, if you really think Stafford's still got that much juice left in the tank there. So same thing, B+, I think, when you look at the Los Angeles Rams, if you're taking into account the fact that their other first-round pick went to getting one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL that they put on a multi-year extension, so that way he's there in Los Angeles for quite some time here.
And that's an important bit of context there that people don't think about. Like, I mean, for the Packers, they didn't have a first-round pick this year because who'd they go get?
Micah Parsons.
Best edge rusher in the NFC, in my opinion. I don't think that's really a hot take.
Yeah, my Micah Parsons highlights hit like crack on Thursday night.
Like, that's their first-round pick, and that's a valuable use of a first-round pick. And so for the Rams, like, going and getting a corner like that he's just from Nigeria?
Yeah,
that's cool.
The Eagles just took UR Bernard. I definitely butchered that. My apologies. A defensive tackle from Nigeria.
Sorry, that caught me off guard because you're so used to seeing a college there.
Good for him.
Whole country, but good for him. That's awesome. But yeah, like you said, like, that's an important bit of context that people don't talk about. If we can not talk about Ty though, and just get like somebody that like nobody's talking about, I really like Justin Jefferson going to the Browns.
That's a good pick too.
I think that he has a chance to go in and make an impact. Maybe not start right away, but in because I mean, what was that, fifth round pick?
5th round pick.
And I love Justin Jefferson. Like, he was a ball hawk. Like,
yeah,
he's gonna go do good things for the Browns, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's starting in a year or 2.
Had 5 pass breakups his last season here at Alabama. At inside linebacker, by the way, was rotating very heavily alongside Deontay Lawson and Nakai Hill-Green there at the inside linebacker position for Kane Womack and Alabama. I'm going to stick with the Browns here, but I'm going to go Parker Brailsford. He's somebody that he may be a little undersized, right? 6'2", not even 300 pounds, but you get every bit of work, muscle, work ethic, playing bigger than he actually is. You get everything out of that here when you look at when you look at Parker Brailsford here, when you look at the Cleveland Browns. And so he's a guy that can open up a lot of lanes in the run game. He's a very smart center. And so if whoever the starter is for the Browns, whether it be Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, Deshaun Watson, the ghost of Joe Flacco, whoever it ends up being for the Browns, you're going to have a really good center there when you look at Parker Brailsford, and you got him for dirt cheap. I mean, I was at Alabama's Pro Day. I was hearing comparisons like, hey, he reminds us a lot of Jason Kelce. And it may not necessarily just be because he's small. He plays with that same physicality that Kelce did coming out of Cincinnati. So if the Browns just got Jason Kelce, excuse me, a lot of S's there. If the Browns just got Jason Kelce in the 5th round of the draft, A+, if that's what they just got here. When you look at Cleveland, you look at the first round on Thursday night here, as we got about 9 minutes left that we'll hang out here. You look at the first round here. Is there a pick that you absolutely just fell in love with? Was like, that was so smart, so phenomenal. Like, this was just the perfect move for this team in the first round on Thursday night here. We got Fernando Mendoza at 1, David Bailey at 2, Jeremiah Love at 3, Carnell Tate at 4, Arvell Reese at 5 to the Giants. The Chiefs trade up for Mansour Delane at number 6, Sonny Styles to the Commanders at 7, Jordan Tyson to the Saints at 8, Spencer Fano to the Browns at 9, Francis Maui-Noah to the Giants again at 10, Caleb Downs to the Cowboys at number 11, trading with Miami. For me, my pick is Caleb Downs.
Get out of my head, man. Get out of my head, man. Like, I was sitting there looking at it, and I was like, oh, Caleb Downs, even though he left Alabama, he still held such a special place in my heart. Like, he was so good, and I was so proud and happy that he was still doing good things. Like, I know the whole saying, as an Alabama fan, if they ain't wearing crimson, I won't finish it. But it's still like, I was happy that he was doing well, and seeing him go to the Cowboys, like, hurts my heart a little bit because I'm not a big Cowboys fan, but it's a good fit, and
I understand positional value, but you let the best player in this draft slip to number 11. And
best player.
The best player in this draft was Caleb Downs.
Ooh.
And you let him fall all the way to number 11. I'll do you one better, because I think the best player in this draft was Caleb Downs. The second best player, Arvell Reese. And you let him slip all the way to number 5. The third best player in this draft, Ruben Bain, fell all the way to number 15. How in the hell does this happen? Positional value.
Yep.
Arvell Reese was primarily an inside linebacker at Ohio State. Caleb Downs is a safety. Ruben Bain, I guess people didn't like that he's got short arms. But, I mean, you flip on the tape, and Ruben Bain is just an absolute monster. So my pick is probably Caleb Downs or Ruben Bain. Dallas just got somebody who can lock down an entire back half of a defense there with Caleb Downs, and only had to move up one spot to go and get him. And then you look at Ruben Bain there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they just got, I mean, we know Todd Bowles and what he likes to do on the defensive side of the ball there. You go and get somebody that is an absolute game wrecker. You keep him in the state of Florida, a place he's very familiar with there. He's now playing in Tampa. I think Ruben Bain or Caleb Downs would be my pick as, like, that is A+. You got somebody who's going to be a potential gold jacket player and didn't have to trade up, didn't take him first overall. He basically just fell in your lap, and you said, okay, I'm going to run that card up there and let Roger Goodell read off my future Hall of Famer.
That card had to have gone up there. Like, I bet that was the fastest that person ever ran, when their eyes were doing the whole Looney Tunes, like, bugging out of their head thing when they saw Caleb Downs sitting there. I really like Peter Woods to the Chiefs, though. Mm-hmm. I really like Peter Woods as a player, and I love big D tackles, and I love it when they go to teams that are actually going to be, like, use them well. I mean, dude's a bowling ball.
Yeah.
Like, I love bowling ball D tackles. He's 6'2", 298.
The favorite thing I've ever heard used to describe a defensive player came from Green Bay head coach Matt LaFleur, and he was talking about TJ Slayton at the time, but I think this applies to Peter Woods as well. He's a trash can full of dirt. You're not going to move him off the line of scrimmage, and I think that's my favorite thing I've ever heard used to describe a player. Peter Woods is like that in the run game. And oh, by the way, he's got violent hands. He's got an active body that he can use to get good bend and rush the passer from an interior perspective as well.
Yeah, like that was the other thing I was going to talk about was just his versatility. Like, sure, you can line him up at D tackle, but he's quick. He's quicker than he should be.
Yes.
Like, the Chiefs getting him at 29, like, hurts my head because as a Patriots fan, like, I don't want the Chiefs to be good. Now, I don't dislike the Chiefs because I actually admire Patrick Mahomes, but, like, I don't want them to be even better and more dangerous than they already are. Like, and Peter Woods absolutely gives that to him. Just somebody that's going to be so versatile for that defense. And that honestly, I think that's a better pick now than I'm sitting here talking about it than the Caleb Downs one.
I think so. Okay. Last question here as we're getting ready to wrap up here in the next couple of minutes or so. Was there a pick in the first round that you just absolute head scratcher? You have no idea what in the world was happening there with this draft pick. Was there one pick in the first round that you were just like, dog, what the hell is this team doing?
I scrolled so fast to the Vikings pick, man. Like, when I was working the night of the first round, and so I couldn't sit there and really, like, look at it. Why the Vikings took Caleb Banks first round, he was going to be there when they pick next. Or when they pick next.
I think,
like, I can't speak. But I don't understand why they reached so far for him. And it's like, I made the joke to you earlier. It's like, man, I hope they fire their GM for that one. But that was a GM-less pick right there. Like, that's, in my opinion.
The Vikings have been without a GM for what, 2 months now? 3 months now?
And it's starting to show.
Yeah.
I don't want to get on a soap opera about the Vikings, but golly.
We'll get off the soapbox of the Vikings pick here, and I'll move on to my pick here. Kenyon Sadiq to the New York Jets. I understand what he is, and you want a safety net there, but the last 3 years in the NFL draft for the New York Jets, you pass on Brock Bowers, one of the two-time Mackey Award winner out of Georgia. You then draft Mason Taylor, who's actually been pretty decent for the New York Jets. And then you go get effectively a backup tight end in Kenyon Sadiq, who is not the best run blocker either, at number 16 overall. When you still had guys that at other positions of need, you need offensive tackle help. Blake Miller goes to the Detroit Lions with the next pick. Georgia's Monroe Freeling goes to the Panthers 2 picks later. You probably need another receiver here. Mekhi Lemon comes off the board to the Philadelphia Eagles. You need defensive edge help. You need somebody on the outside there of you took David Bailey, so okay, I take that back. You didn't need defensive line help there. But I mean, even still, secondary, Dylan Thieneman was there. Or what everybody loves to do in the first round of the NFL draft, trade back. Is there somebody that was so in love with, a prospect or something like that, that you were able to get a couple of picks out of them? But the Jets, they take David Bailey at pick number 2. Great decision. Great move for the New York Jets. The Jets are going to jet, and they made a really bad decision there at number 16. Hopefully it works out for them, or maybe they'll just sit in 12 personnel with Mason Taylor and Kenyon Sadiq for, 80% of their offensive snaps next season, because that's what it looks like the Jets are trending towards right now here. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Will, anything else on your mind that we didn't get to this evening?
Just a quick counter. It just seems like that was BPA. That's all that seemed like it was. Because, go back and look at the rank. Like, it was 5 spots lower than. Obviously, this is using ESPN, so
11th overall.
It just seems like BPA. But I'm agreeing with you. He just seems like a shorter Kyle Pitts, and Kyle Pitts just hasn't been that good in the NFL. Not terrible, and he's starting to come along.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're almost to Mr. Irrelevant.
Well, I guess we'll stick around for Mr. Irrelevant. The Broncos are making the last 2 picks here in the NFL draft.
As YouTube TV is asking if you're still watching.
Run and grab that remote. That's remote.
Funny.
We're literally sitting here watching the draft, and my TV, 2 picks from the end, says, "Are you still watching?" So we'll hang out here for just a couple of minutes and go over Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe it's Diego Pavia. Maybe he does.
That'd be
hysterical.
Oh,
maybe it is
good.
Diego Pavia there.
What's crazy is
Todd is not even on the best available.
Yeah, he's not even one of Mel Kiper's 10 best available prospects here. So.
At least I haven't seen him in the time I've been watching because I've been trying to pay attention just in case a Bama player goes.
But real quick here, as we're waiting on Mr. Irrelevant, do you have like an early favorite for offensive player of the year or defensive player of the year? Or both?
I haven't thought about it that much, so I don't really know.
Well, my defensive player of the year pick, again, this is like way too early. Half these guys aren't even in their cities yet, much less, practicing, getting ready for games and whatnot. I feel like it's a cop-out answer, but the best player in the draft went at number 11, Caleb Downs, defensive player of the year, I think.
That's a good one.
He's got that ability.
I think David Bailey could.
Oh, he's a good one.
I think he's going to go and make an impact right away.
Yeah.
Caleb Downs will too. But if an edge makes an impact, even about 75% of what a safety does, they're going to win it just because edge is a more premium position. And so I think David Bailey could.
What about offensive player of the year?
I think Jeremiah Love. And also you're talking about rookie of the year. That's another thing I got confused
That's what
about.
I meant. My bad.
I got a little confused. I was like,
can you tell we don't talk NFL that much?
It's a college football show. We eat, sleep, breathe college football here. I'm so disillusioned with the NFL at this point that I might not even do fantasy this year. But Jeremiah Love is going to be up there.
Okay.
If
the trendy pick would be Mendoza, I'm not doing that.
I'm not buying it right now. I think they need to build around him. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust because I'm not that crazy, but I think this year's going to be rough for him unless him and Bowers just instantly click, which they could. Mendoza's a smart player. He's a good player, and so that's possible. If Cam Ward and Carnell Tate click, I think Carnell Tate could. But I think that the most likely answer is probably Jeremiah Love because he's going to get the Bijan Robinson treatment in Arizona as probably one of 2 or 3 good players on that offense, depending on how Marvin Harrison Jr. progresses.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Jeremiah Love. I'll go final answer, Jeremiah Love.
Can I introduce you to his backup at Notre Dame, who also was a very good running back for the Fighting Irish, but, you're sitting behind Jeremiah Love. But the reason I think it may not be Jeremiah Love is the Cardinals still have a really, really rough offensive line, and just plopping Jeremiah Love in there is not going to fix that problem. This team just had the Super Bowl MVP, be a running back behind a phenomenal offensive line. You now are took in the first round Jadarian Price for the Seattle Seahawks. Not a ton of tread, worn off those tires, only 280 college carries. Still produced really, really well in college, though. Had 11 touchdowns his last year at Notre Dame. Only played 3 years of college football, so wasn't in college for super long and didn't have a ton of carries. And he's going to probably the best offensive spot that he could have here in the NFL. Immediately going to come in and compete for that RB1 job now that Kenneth Walker is sitting in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just know that they're going to want to rely on Sam Darnold a little bit more, which is a crazy thing for me to say because I was just sitting here talking about the Vikings and here we are.
You had Sam Darnold.
I know. And that's why I don't want to talk about it, man. I don't want to talk about it. But that could be a good one. I just was worried about how they would treat him with Sam Darnold.
That's
and,
fair.
Because he's not going to be the focal point of the offense. Jeremiah Love will be.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He'll get so many carries that it may not matter.
Yeah.
How bad that line is, and I took that into account that the line's not going to be where they want it for probably 3 years. Quite frankly,
who starts Week 1 for the Arizona Cardinals? Is it Jacoby Brissett, who they've had contract issues with? Probably isn't going to be at any of the offseason workouts until his contract gets settled. Is it Gardner Minshew, who has just kind of been floating in the ether out there at Arizona? Or is it our favorite Georgia Bulldog Miami Dolphin transfer, Carson Beck?
Kyler Murray. Honestly, it's $1 million question, man. Honestly, I don't know. I think they get things sorted out with Jacoby Brissett.
Okay.
Because, I mean, based off of what you were telling me, they wanted Ty.
They did. They were very high on Ty Simpson.
And if he fell to what, the 26th pick,
Yeah,
They were gonna take him.
25, 26. Yeah, they were going to trade back in.
so glad he didn't go there because he would have started day one.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Carson Beck could start. My gut tells me Jacoby Brissett. So
Okay, that's fair. I like it. I like Jacoby Brissett there. He did some really good things with New England when he needed to. And so you look at it here. Mr. Irrelevant has officially been announced. The final pick of the 2026 NFL Draft is Buffalo linebacker Red Murdoch. We don't know jack squat about him.
first team All MAC, second team AP All Wow.
Okay.
Buffalo.
That's actually pretty
Wow.
impressive. Second team AP All-American, first team All-MAC there, like Will just said. 6'2", 232-pound linebacker, like I said, like we
Good
said, out of
size.
Buffalo. This is the pre-draft analysis, courtesy of ESPN. Extremely productive linebacker with an NCAA record 17 forced fumbles in his career.
Ooh, he just blew up that guy.
So
He can hit. I
hey,
understand this is MAC tape, but like, holy crap, this guy is actually really good.
we love Mac. Oh, there's another
We
forced
love
fumble.
Maction, man.
We love Maction. So that's going to do it for us today here on our Saturday live stream. Thank you, everybody who watched, listened, chatted with us. We really, really appreciate y'all. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Completely free. Doesn't sign you up for anything. All it does is just help me out here when you look at this side of things here. Hey, we got my guy Cotton in here. What's going on, man? You got any questions for us? We were getting ready to wrap up, but Way Offsides Cotton, check him out as well. He does a lot of great stuff here on YouTube. Cotton, you got any questions for us here? We talked about Elijah Haven, the NFL draft, and we were just getting ready to wrap things up. So big shout out to our guy Cotton there. If you've got any questions, hit us up. We'd be more than willing to, talk about it here. But with Mr. Irrelevant going here, that being Buffalo linebacker Red Murdoch, I think we're getting ready to wrap things up here on a Saturday live stream of the Deep South College Football Show. So we really appreciate you guys again. Check us out on YouTube. Appreciate you, Cotton, man. We really appreciate that. We're glad to get this rocking and rolling here because it's something we've been wanting to do for a while. It's something that I've been, I've been on with you guys. I've been on with Herb and Raj. I've been on with JT. Y'all all do a really good job. And so figured, hey, try my hand at it, see what I can get rocking and rolling here. So we appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, completely free, doesn't sign you up for anything. Be sure to follow us on social media at FultonW_ on the X account. That's where you can check out, all of our live streams, all of my articles for Tide100.9.com, and my coverage of the University of Alabama. And Will pops in there every once in a while. My good buddy Will Davis here. Ryan Bond also jumps on with us every once in a while. So if you guys enjoyed this, may do this again here in the coming weeks as well. Won't do it next week because I'll be out of town heading out for some rest and relaxation as we've kind of moved through college football, college basketball, as well as the NFL draft here. So appreciate you guys. We will see y'all next time